They say the way to a man's heart is through admiration. But what if I told you that admiration isn't always the key to desire? The male ego is a complex, delicate thing, part pride, part vulnerability. And sometimes it's not endless praise that captures his mind, but the challenge of earning your approval when you understand how to nudge, not crush, that ego, how to spark curiosity without overexposing your interests, you awaken something powerful in him. The need to prove himself to you, to win you, to keep you. Today, we're going to uncover the psychological secret behind turning that quiet spark into an obsession that keeps his attention locked on you. The male ego is one of the most fascinating elements of human psychology, and understanding it is key to influencing attraction on a deeper level. It is often misunderstood as nothing more than arrogance or pride, but in reality, the male ego is a delicate yet powerful combination of identity, self-worth, and the desire for recognition. From early childhood, men are conditioned to seek approval through achievement. Whether it's excelling in sports, performing well in academics, or being admired in social settings, a man's sense of worth is often tied to how he measures up in the eyes of others. This conditioning doesn't disappear with age, it simply transforms. In relationships, that same need for acknowledgement and validation plays a significant role in how a man perceives both himself and the person he is attracted to. When a woman fully understands this, she can interact with a man in ways that leave a lasting impression. Men are naturally drawn to challenges because challenges give them a chance to prove themselves. The ego thrives on proving worth, and the man who feels he must work to earn a woman's respect will often find himself more deeply invested in her. This is why effortless approval can sometimes diminish interest, while a woman who sets standards and requires effort captures attention for much longer. The psychology behind this is simple. When something is easily obtained, the mind tends to undervalue it. When something is earned, it becomes a prized possession. The male ego is not only about external validation, but also about self-image. Men see themselves through the lens of how others respond to them, particularly women they find attractive. When a woman challenges this perception, she creates a ripple effect in his mind. He begins to question how she sees him, which sparks curiosity and drives him to seek more interaction. This is not about being cruel or overly critical. It's about understanding the balance between acknowledgement and challenge. If a woman constantly praises a man without any resistance, the ego feels satisfied too quickly, and the chase naturally slows down. But when she offers limited validation, spaced out with moments that make him wonder where he stands, his mind becomes engaged in trying to win her over. Ego is also tied to a man's sense of masculinity. For many men, their role as a protector, provider, or leader in a relationship is central to their identity. When a woman subtly indicates that she values these traits, but also expects them to be proven, she indirectly activates his instinct to rise to the occasion. Men love to feel competent and admired, but they also love the feeling of overcoming obstacles. When the ego is slightly challenged, it creates a sense of urgency to prove strength, capability, and worthiness. This is where a fine psychological line exists. Too much challenge can bruise the ego and create resentment, but just the right amount fuels attraction and keeps the man invested. In addition, the ego responds powerfully to exclusivity. If a man feels that not every gesture or compliment is handed out freely, he perceives the woman's attention as rare and valuable. This rarity compels him to act differently toward her compared to others. The ego whispers to him that if he can secure her admiration, he will have achieved something not everyone can. This taps into the competitive nature inherent in many men, making them more determined to stand out in her eyes. Men also carry silent insecurities that they often mask with confidence or humor. A woman who understands this doesn't exploit it cruelly, but she also doesn't cater to those insecurities by giving constant reassurance. Instead, she offers selective affirmation enough to let him know she notices his efforts, but not so much that he feels there is nothing left to strive for. This keeps the ego slightly unsatisfied, which ironically makes him keep coming back for more. Another layer of the male ego involves the need for significance. Men want to feel that they matter to the people they care about. However, when significance is given without being earned, it loses impact. By carefully balancing warmth with independence, a woman can send the subtle message that while she appreciates him, her world does not revolve around him. This positioning enhances her value in his mind, as the ego is drawn to those who are desirable, yet not fully attainable. Ultimately, understanding the psychology of the male ego is about knowing how to blend encouragement with challenge. It's about creating an environment where a man feels the need to consistently prove himself without ever feeling humiliated or defeated. This combination keeps his interest alive because the ego is wired to chase validation that is just out of reach. The moment he feels he has completely won without further effort, the drive naturally fades. But when the balance is maintained, the connection deepens and the desire intensifies. Playful rejection is one of the most effective tools for creating intrigue and attraction because it speaks directly to a man's competitive instincts while keeping the interaction light and engaging. It is not about being rude, disrespectful, or dismissive, but about weaving small, teasing moments into conversations and interactions that make him feel like he still has something to prove. The key is in the word playful. It's a dance between showing interest and pulling back just enough to keep him wondering. This keeps the emotional dynamic exciting and unpredictable, which is exactly what draws him closer. When you incorporate playful rejection into your interactions, you send a subconscious signal that you are not easily impressed. This instantly makes you stand out in his mind because it contrasts with the validation he might receive from others. The male ego thrives on challenge, and when you create moments where he feels he has to win you over, you automatically become more intriguing. For example, if he tries to show off, instead of showering him with praise, you might respond with a lighthearted comment that pokes fun at him in a charming way. This not only keeps the mood fun, but also plants a subtle reminder that your admiration must be earned, not assumed. Playful rejection works because it activates curiosity. A man will naturally want to understand why you are not fully giving in to his charm. He begins to question what it will take to get your complete attention, and this question keeps him emotionally engaged. Humans, in general, value things that are slightly out of reach, and men are no different. The slight tension between wanting and having is where attraction intensifies. When you master the art of giving just enough attention while also holding back, you create a space where he feels compelled to close the gap. This strategy also creates an environment where he puts more effort into the relationship from the very beginning. Instead of taking your interest for granted, he remains in a state of action, planning dates, making gestures, and showing up in ways that keep your attention. Effort is the fuel for sustained attraction, and playful rejection ensures that effort remains present. When everything is given too easily, effort diminishes because there is no perceived need for it. By gently pushing back in a teasing manner, you remind him that your affection is valuable and worth working for. The beauty of playful rejection lies in its emotional impact. When done well, it doesn't bruise his ego. Instead, it energizes it. It's like giving him a a small obstacle to jump over, a challenge that makes the reward of your attention even sweeter. The man who receives constant approval may enjoy it in the short term, but over time he becomes less motivated to maintain the same level of enthusiasm. In contrast, the man who experiences a bit of resistance in a playful way is driven to continuously show his best side. Playful rejection also allows you to test his character. The way a man responds to lighthearted pushback reveals a lot about his personality. A confident man will take it as fun banter and rise to the challenge, while a man with fragile self-esteem may react negatively. This naturally helps you filter out men who are not emotionally resilient enough to handle a strong, self-assured partner. In this way, playful rejection is both a bonding tool and a form of emotional screening. It's important to remember that the tone and delivery matter as much as the words you choose. A teasing smile, a mischievous look, or a playful tone of voice makes all the difference between sparking attraction and causing offense. You are not trying to make him feel small. You are simply making the game of pursuit more interesting. It's the difference between saying, "You'll have to try harder than that," with a smirk, versus saying it with a cold, dismissive tone. One invites him in, the other pushes him away. This dynamic also taps into a man's desire to feel accomplished in winning over a woman he respects. If he knows you are not swayed by superficial gestures, he will work harder to connect with you on a deeper level. This not only strengthens attraction, but also builds a foundation for a more meaningful bond because he feels he has earned his place in your life. And the more invested he feels, the less likely he is to take you for granted. In many ways, playful rejection is like seasoning in cooking too little, and the dish becomes bland, too much, and it becomes unpleasant. The right balance creates a flavor that leaves him wanting more. When you combine warmth, wit, and just the right amount of resistance, you create an irresistible dynamic that makes a man think about you long after the conversation ends. The male ego loves the chase, and playful rejection keeps that chase alive, while deepening the emotional stakes in a way that constant approval never could. Withholding validation is a subtle yet powerful way to build desire because it taps directly into the human tendency to value what is scarce. When a man receives constant affirmation, it can quickly lose its impact. Compliments and praise become background noise rather than meaningful signals. But when validation is given sparingly and intentionally, it becomes something he notices, craves, and works for. This doesn't mean being cold or unkind. Rather, it's about being selective with your approval so that it carries weight. A man who knows he must earn your positive attention will invest more effort into keeping it. And this sustained effort is what deepens attraction over time. The male ego thrives on recognition, but it also thrives on achievement. If you give him constant validation without requiring effort, you remove the sense of accomplishment that fuels his interest. By holding back just enough, you allow him to feel that winning your admiration is an ongoing process. This creates a cycle in which he is motivated to keep impressing you, rather than settling into complacency. Each time you give validation, it feels earned and significant, making him cherish it more deeply than if it were given freely. This strategy also works because it creates an element of unpredictability. If a man cannot easily predict when or how he will receive your approval, it keeps him engaged on a psychological level. People are more motivated to pursue rewards that are uncertain because the anticipation itself becomes addictive. Just like in games of chance, the possibility of a win drives repeated action. When your validation is not guaranteed, he remains alert and attentive, looking for opportunities to please you and earn your acknowledgement. Withholding validation also helps maintain a healthy balance of power in a relationship dynamic. When one person is constantly giving and the other is constantly receiving, the balance tips too far, often leading to one-sided effort. By being selective with your praise, you avoid falling into a dynamic where he takes your attention for granted. Instead, he learns to see your approval as a valuable currency that is not handed out without merit. This positions you as someone who knows her worth and expects to be treated accordingly. Another important aspect of withholding validation is that it encourages authenticity. When you don't automatically praise everything he does, it forces him to think about what truly matters to you and to align his actions with those values. This results in more genuine effort on his part because he knows he can't simply coast on charm or surface-level gestures. He becomes more intentional about how he treats you, understanding that your respect is not something to be assumed, but something to be nurtured. This approach also taps into a man's competitive nature, both with himself and with others. If he feels that your validation is rare, he will see earning it as a challenge and will compete consciously or unconsciously to stand out in your eyes. In group settings, this can be particularly effective. If he notices that you don't lavish him with attention in public, but instead offer a meaningful compliment at just the right moment, the contrast will amplify the emotional impact of your words. Withholding validation is not about playing games in a manipulative way. It's about creating a rhythm in which appreciation is balanced with expectation. Men who are constantly praised without challenge often stop trying because their effort is no longer tied to a sense of reward. But when appreciation is earned, it reinforces the idea that their actions matter and are noticed. This sustains motivation and keeps the relationship dynamic alive. It's also worth noting that selective validation strengthens the emotional bond because it makes your approval more trustworthy. If you only praise him when you genuinely mean it, he will place greater value on your words. This builds respect, as he knows you are not simply saying things to please him, but are instead expressing authentic feelings. Over time, this authenticity becomes one of the most attractive qualities you can offer. Finally, withholding validation creates space for him to pursue you. When you are not constantly feeding his ego, you give him the opportunity to step up, take initiative, and invest in the connection. This investment deepens his emotional attachment, as people naturally value relationships they have worked hard to maintain. By keeping your validation purposeful and selective, you not only build desire, but also ensure that his attention and effort remain strong well beyond the initial stages of attraction. Turning subtle criticism into motivation is an art that requires emotional intelligence, precise timing, and the right delivery. When done correctly, it can inspire a man to become the best version of himself without making him feel attacked or devalued. Men, in general, are driven by the desire to be respected and admired, and the male ego often responds more strongly to a challenge than to constant praise. However, the difference between inspiring improvement and causing defensiveness lies in the subtlety of the approach. Instead of delivering blunt criticism that bruises the ego, you use light, constructive feedback wrapped in encouragement, which pushes him to prove himself in a positive way. The reason subtle criticism works so effectively is that it activates a man's competitive nature, not necessarily against others, but against his own potential. When you highlight an area for improvement in a way that shows you believe he is capable of more, you are indirectly setting a standard for him to meet. This doesn't make him feel like a failure. Instead, it makes him feel that you see his potential and expect him to rise to it. This combination of belief and challenge fuels his motivation to go beyond his current limits. The delivery of this kind of feedback is crucial. A warm tone, a slight smile, or even playful banter can soften the edge of your words while keeping the message clear. For example, instead of saying, "You're bad at this," you might say with a smirk, "I've seen you do better. You're not going to let that be your best, are you?" This kind of comment triggers his instinct to prove himself without making him feel small. The ego is far more likely to respond positively when it feels encouraged rather than attacked. Subtle criticism also creates an opportunity for emotional bonding. When a man feels that you notice details about him, both his strengths and areas to improve it, signals that you are paying attention and that you care about his growth. This deepens the emotional connection because he begins to associate you with someone who challenges him to rise higher. Men often admire and stay drawn to people who push them in ways that feel both supportive and inspiring. Another reason this method works is because it keeps the relationship dynamic alive. If you only offer praise and never challenge him, there's a risk of the connection becoming stagnant. By occasionally introducing gentle criticism, you prevent complacency and maintain a sense of forward momentum. This keeps him engaged, not just with you, but with his own self-improvement, which he will subconsciously associate with your presence in his life. Timing plays a huge role in how effective subtle criticism can be. Offering it in a moment of calm, humor, or intimacy makes it far more digestible than delivering it during an argument or tense situation. The goal is to make him feel inspired to take action, not cornered into defending himself. When you choose the right moment, your words can land with far more impact because they don't feel like an attack. They feel like a challenge worth accepting. It's also important to balance subtle criticism with moments of genuine acknowledgement. If all he hears is where he needs to improve, the ego may feel worn down over time. But if he knows that you also see and appreciate his efforts, your occasional challenges will carry more weight. This balance reassures him that your feedback comes from a place of wanting to see him succeed, not from a desire to tear him down. Subtle criticism works particularly well when it plays into his strengths. If you frame it in a way that ties improvement to qualities he already values about himself, he's more likely to embrace it. For instance, if he prides himself on being resourceful, you could say, "I know you're good at figuring things out. That's why I was surprised you didn't take that one further." This approach makes him feel like you believe in his abilities and simply expect him to use them fully. Over time, this dynamic can create a powerful feedback loop. He begins to see your subtle criticism not as a threat, but as a motivator. He knows that winning your full admiration is an ongoing process, and that process keeps him invested. Every time he rises to meet a challenge you've set, he experiences a sense of accomplishment that he connects directly to your presence in his life. This is the kind of motivation that not only strengthens his attraction, but also deepens his commitment. Ultimately, turning subtle criticism into motivation is about positioning yourself as both a supporter and a challenger. It's about communicating that you believe in his potential and won't let him settle for less than his best. The male ego thrives under the right kind of challenge. And when you master the balance between critique and encouragement, you create a dynamic that keeps him striving, improving, and staying deeply engaged in the connection. Balancing confidence with mystery is one of the most magnetic combinations a woman can embody when it comes to keeping a man hooked. Confidence signals self-worth, independence, and the ability to stand on your own, while mystery keeps his curiosity alive and prevents the relationship from becoming predictable. Together, these qualities create a dynamic where he feels both inspired and intrigued. He admires your strength while being drawn to discover more about you. The male ego is naturally attracted to women who exude certainty in who they are, but it also craves the challenge of unraveling layers that are not immediately revealed. Confidence begins with knowing your value and refusing to compromise it for anyone. A confident woman sets clear boundaries, not out of fear of losing someone, but because she understands that her worth is not defined by another person's approval. This energy is incredibly attractive because it communicates that you are in control of your life and emotions. Men are drawn to women who are secure within themselves because it creates a sense of stability, but also because it subtly tells them they must rise to your level rather than expecting you to lower your standards. However, while confidence commands respect, mystery keeps the spark alive. Mystery is not about playing manipulative games. It's about allowing parts of yourself to unfold gradually rather than all at once. When you reveal everything too soon, your thoughts, your feelings, your plans, there is nothing left for him to discover. The thrill of pursuit often comes from the unknown, and by keeping certain aspects of yourself private or slowly revealed over time, you give him a reason to stay engaged and curious. Mystery also creates space for his imagination, which is a powerful tool in building desire. When he doesn't have the full picture, his mind will fill in the blanks, often in ways that are more compelling than reality. This is why unpredictability in how you respond, the pace at which you share your personal world, and the activities you do together can heighten his interest. It prevents the connection from feeling routine and ensures he never feels like he fully has you in a way that leads to complacency. The balance between these two qualities is crucial. Too much confidence without mystery can make you seem distant or overly self-contained, which may intimidate rather than attract. On the other hand, too much mystery without visible confidence can make you seem elusive but unstable, which can lead to misunderstandings. When combined in harmony, confidence gives you the strength to stand firm in who you are, and mystery ensures there's always something new for him to uncover. In practical terms, balancing confidence with mystery means maintaining your own life and interests outside of the relationship. A man should see that you have passions, goals, and commitments that exist independently of him. This not only demonstrates confidence but also fuels mystery, because he doesn't have complete access to every part of your world. The knowledge that you have a life beyond him makes him want to be part of it even more. It also means being intentional about how much you share emotionally and when. Opening up about your feelings is essential for building trust, but pacing that vulnerability can make it even more powerful. For instance, instead of revealing all your insecurities or deepest memories early on, allow them to surface naturally as the relationship develops. This pacing gives each revelation more impact and keeps him emotionally engaged. Another way to embody this balance is through how you handle attention and affection. Confidence allows you to give affection freely when you choose, without feeling the need to constantly reassure him. Mystery, however, allows you to occasionally pull back, not in a cold way, but in a way that reminds him your attention is precious. This ebb and flow keeps the dynamic exciting and makes your moments of connection feel more special. Balancing confidence with mystery also applies to how you respond to challenges in the relationship. Confidence means addressing issues directly, knowing your worth, and standing up for what you need. Mystery means not always laying all your cards on the table in terms of your emotional strategies, allowing him to wonder and reflect on how to win you back into deeper closeness. This interplay keeps him invested in maintaining your admiration and deepening the bond. Ultimately, the power of this combination lies in the fact that it keeps you in a position of value and allure. A confident woman who also carries an air of mystery is someone a man feels he must continually work to impress and understand. She never becomes boring or predictable, and she never sacrifices her own identity for the sake of the relationship. Instead, she creates an environment where the male ego is constantly engaged, admiring her strength while being irresistibly drawn to the parts of her he has yet to discover. Emotional scarcity is a powerful driver of attraction because it triggers a man's instinct to pursue and protect what feels rare. When something is abundant and always available, it is human nature to take it for granted. But when it feels limited, its perceived value increases dramatically. In relationships, this principle works the same way. If you give constant emotional availability, affection, and attention without boundaries, it can unintentionally lower the urgency for him to invest. On the other hand, when your emotional presence is measured and intentional, it creates a sense of longing that fuels desire and commitment. The male ego thrives on the idea of earning and maintaining something special. If your emotions are always on display and accessible at every moment, there is no challenge or sense of accomplishment in keeping your interest. But when you create moments where he has to work for your emotional openness, where he feels that your attention and affection are not automatic, it keeps him actively engaged. This does not mean playing manipulative games or withholding love in a cruel way. Instead, it is about understanding that part of attraction lies in the tension between access and distance. Emotional scarcity works because it encourages him to put in more effort to secure your connection. If he knows that your full warmth and affection are given only when his actions align with your standards and needs, he will be more intentional in how he treats you. This process builds respect because he recognizes that your emotions are valuable and cannot be taken lightly. A man who feels he has earned your affection will work harder to keep it than a man who receives it without having to invest. Another benefit of emotional scarcity is that it maintains balance in the relationship dynamic. When one person gives too much too soon, it often leads to an imbalance where the other person stops trying as hard. By pacing your emotional investment, you ensure that the exchange of energy remains mutual. This keeps him from slipping into complacency and keeps the spark alive over time. Men often find themselves more deeply attached to someone who has inspired consistent effort from them, because that effort creates a deeper emotional stake in the relationship. The key to making emotional scarcity effective is authenticity. You are not withholding your emotions out of fear or insecurity, but because you have a healthy sense of self-worth and understand the importance of pacing intimacy. This authenticity makes the scarcity feel natural rather than forced. It is not about creating unnecessary drama. It is about showing that while you are capable of deep love, you are selective about who receives it fully and how often. Emotional scarcity also ties into mystery. When you do not reveal every feeling immediately, you create an air of unpredictability that keeps him curious. He wonders what you are thinking, how you are feeling, and what it will take to draw more of your emotional openness. This curiosity fuels pursuit because the male ego is drawn to challenges that promise a reward. The reward, in this case, is deeper connection and intimacy with you, something he cannot achieve without putting in consistent effort. This approach also ensures that your emotions retain their impact. When you do express affection, appreciation, or vulnerability, it feels significant and memorable. He will recall those moments more vividly because they are not part of the daily background noise, but stand out as meaningful milestones. Each instance of emotional openness reinforces his sense of achievement and deepens the bond, making him more committed to keeping your attention and admiration. It's important to note that emotional scarcity does not mean emotional coldness. You are still warm, kind, and supportive, but you are intentional about when and how you express deep emotions. You understand that love and affection are most appreciated when they are tied to meaningful moments and genuine connection. This approach fosters a relationship where both partners are actively contributing rather than one person carrying all the emotional weight. In the long term, emotional scarcity creates a dynamic where he continually seeks your approval, attention, and affection, because he knows they are not guaranteed. The male ego is stimulated by the pursuit of something valuable and rare, and your emotional selectiveness reinforces that value. By being mindful of when you open your heart fully and when you hold back, you keep him in a state of active desire rather than passive comfort, ensuring the connection remains strong and compelling.